You're listening to the Mind Manual Podcast, Episode 2, the CPU of the Mind. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Mind Manual. Today, we're going to extend the analogy we explored in the first episode in looking at the mind as a computer or mainframe in our attempt to get some distance between who we really are and our mind. So if we were to take the concept of consciousness itself, which we briefly touched on in Beyond the Mind, and looked at how it fits into the model of our human life on Earth, a question to ask is, if it's comprised of source energy in the non-physical form, how does consciousness itself experience all that life has to offer? My guess is that it's through our human senses, through the physical body, via our touch, sight, smell, taste, and hearing. Let's call this the input data. And the brain then gets to work and starts processing it all through its CPU function to then give feedback or output in the form of thoughts. It's offering us up to 60,000 thoughts a day in an attempt to process the world through its input senses, and the culmination of which amounts to an experience of life here on Earth. Consciousness is the silent observer, and without the benefit of this CPU, it doesn't process and therefore doesn't judge. It represents the source of all creation and is constant. It is immersed in the oneness of life. In order for consciousness to experience the differentiation of itself from all other life forms and manifestations, it needs sensory input via our body and the ability to process it and perceive it with the mind. And within our evolution is some genetic code programmed into our DNA that contains instructions needed for an organism to develop, survive, and reproduce. Think of it like some pre-installed operating software. So our computer has been pre-installed with the primal functions of development, survival, and reproduction. It already has a set of rules by which it learns, processes, and delivers information in order that we evolve, stay out of harm's way, and multiply. So it has a big job to do, except this computer doesn't turn off. It's operating 24/7. During the day, it's processing our wakeful hours, and at night, it's ensuring our body is being restored, while our mind is revisiting experiences of the day and creatively imagining others in the form of dreams. So our CPU already has an inbuilt bias towards these three primary or primal functions. It's going to offer many different combinations of output data, being our thoughts, based on our input stimuli. This programming bias and its incessant 24/7 active nature. So in order to get some context around these thoughts, the mind is going to add another layer of complexity in its attempt to understand the world and protect you from it. This context is going to come in the form of stories that get wrapped around thoughts and observations that you're having about the world. And then another layer of what we're going to all make that mean is then further added to gain more understanding and give greater substance or importance to it all. So we take the thoughts and statements or questions our mind presents to us, and we bring them to life by wrapping stories around them and assigning meaning to them that appears so real. And we go on thinking that's just the way the world is, or the other person is, and even ourselves. We don't see how we've manufactured these stories and constructs with our own mind. But if we peel back all the layers and cease all the mind activity, what we'd be left with is just the facts of the observation without the stories and judgment and drama that we add to it. These neutral facts need to be stripped back to what any silent, passive observer without a thinking mind or emotional feeling body could provide data or feedback on about any situation or circumstance. No subjectivity, no relativity, just the absolute facts of the situation, so that everyone would agree despite their background, experiences, privileges, and biases. We need to realize that all these other layers of interpretation, fabrication, and assigned meaning is just our brain doing what brains do. They spin 24/7, pumping out thoughts, images, imaginings, and stories in an attempt to get some understanding of our environment in order to keep us developing, reproducing, and above all, safe and alive. When we can see the mind for what it is, what it does, and the why behind it all, and then center yourself back into consciousness to the part of who we really are, we get to see a momentary glimpse of all of creation in all its variety across the full spectrum, and just marvel at the opportunity to participate in all of it. When we embrace the fullness of all the experiences that are available to us in this lifetime, without all the filters and expectations we place on everything, then we'd be just left to experience it in a more pure way, without all the layering and mental suffering we add on to it. Let's just take a quick look at the quality of thoughts or output the mind presents to us. How much of it actually comes true? All the fears and worries and predictions it spits out from its search results, how many of them actually become manifest in your life? The mind will go and make something up if it doesn't know. Have you ever noticed how it loves to just take a stab in the dark and then present it all just as facts? And we fall for it over and over again. It's crazy what we let it get up to. And then we go and get carried away with it all by asking dead-end questions that couldn't possibly return any quality search results to freak ourselves out that much more. We become a reckless computer operator that inputs garbage, and we wonder why we get garbage back. When we ask ourselves questions like, why does he always do that to annoy me? Or statements like, I could never do that. That CPU in your mind grabs that input and gets to work, which it loves to do, and produce a whole list of search results on all the reasons why you could never do that and ways he loves to annoy you so much. You're sending it on a mission that can only return you results that will keep you small and annoyed. But if you were to ask your CPU some higher quality questions, such as, what are all the ways in which he supports me? Or in what ways is this possible for me to do? You're going to get some better quality search results on all the ways you're supported and why it could be possible for you. We need to be mindful of the harmful ways we use this search algorithm against ourselves. It's the old garbage in, garbage out logic that applies to any type of input-output relationship. And the computer of our mind is no exception. It's a processing unit that produces an output based on its input. We can either use it for ourselves or against ourselves. And as with any tool or instrument, it's always a double-edged sword. We can't escape the law of opposites in this world of relativity. So we need to become more aware of the way we're using it as an operator. The choice is ours. We get to choose which thoughts, statements, and stories that we attach to any situation or circumstance, that we go and input to this computer system of ours. Awakening to the separation between the conscious spiritual observer within and the mind that receives input from both the ego and sensory receptors of the body will create some distance between the thoughts your mind will offer you as output and identifying with who you really are. You are not your thoughts from your mind. You are not your feelings from your body. They are the channels through which the intangible part of you gets to experience life here on earth. They are what enables the illusion of you being separate from everyone and everything and identifies you as being individual from all other manifestations. When we can see the mind and body as being a tool and a container for that part of us that needs them to perceive and experience all of life, then we don't need to take these mind-body aspects of ourselves so seriously. Viewing the mind as a central processing unit is a great step towards discovering who you really are. Studying the mind as a computer software program with the brain as the hardware will help to understand how we can build out a mind manual to help navigate our life with a little more grace and finesse as an operator. This is the Journey of the Mind Manual podcast. Tune in next week.